Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Kartik sir here. Today we are going to do the revision in relation to CA Inter Audit chapter number 6, that is audit documentation. Okay. Now let's understand the flow of this chapter very nicely. Very simple chapter also. And because there is a revision video, you will understand that I'll be just telling you what that answer is about and not go in depth in the teaching process. Okay. So let's start. In the first point, you will have to see that what is the definition of audit documentation that is given first. Okay, so what is audit documentation? It is a record of the audit procedures performed, audit evidence obtained, and the conclusions reached by the auditor. In the class, if the students remember, we had done an action where audit procedures performed, audit evidence are obtained, and the conclusions reached. Okay, now this is your first one, that is definition of audit documentation. Now, the second area is the audit documentation provides evidence regarding which matter. If you remember clearly, it was PP and OO, PP and OO. So when you maintain your audit documentation, that is your own notes while doing the audit, it provides an evidence regarding that the auditing that you have done is planned and performed as per your standards and regulatory and legal requirements that you know very well as SARL. And also it provides a basis for conclusion for your overall objectives of auditing. So the fact that you have reached the RA level, आप RA लेवल तक पहुंचे इसका एक प्रूफ मिल जाता है यहाँ पे. It is a proof that you did your auditing properly and you reached your overall objectives of the auditing. Simple. Your answer number 3 is in relation to the factors on which the audit documentation depends. The form, content, and extent of audit documentation depends. What are the factors? Very simple. We had done this in the class. Tell me this. Size and complexity of the entity, audit procedures performed using the audit methodologies and tools used, audit evidence obtained, exceptions identified, risk identified, and finally documentation of the conclusion. Okay. Now in the class I had given you the explanation regarding each of those points, but as this is a revision video, I'm just going to tell you the points that are there. Okay. Your answer number 4 is nothing but purpose of audit documentation. That is basically this. So what is the purpose of audit documentation? Let's go for it. First is audit documentation is accountable. It makes the person accountable. So if in the audit documentation you have written a person's name that this person has to do the work, then he becomes accountable. The work can be nicely planned and performed if the audit documentation is there in place. The direction, supervision, and review can be done properly if audit documentation is there in place. It helps in external inspection, it helps in quality control review and inspection, and finally it helps in future audit. Simple. And all my dear students, you know the Goa story that we must have done in the class. And with that, we remembered all these 6 friends, what kind of friends you have in life. With that, we understood this area. Okay, there's your question number 4. So we have completed the definition. It provides evidence regarding which matters, factors on which the form, content, extent of audit documentation depends. Purpose of audit documentation is 4. The fifth one, in my opinion, the most important one is this one, that is the form, content, extent of audit documentation. Remember, this is factors on which form, content, and extent depends on. This is a form, content, extent of audit documentation. There is a separate answer, in my opinion, a very important one. Okay. In this, we had done a hand action in the class where we saw, sir, what is audit documentation, form, content, and extent? Basically, what will we include in the audit documentation? So, audit procedures performed, the nature, time, and extent of that, specific items tested, who performed, who reviewed, audit evidence obtained. Then we had significant matters, significant judgments, conclusions reached. When we say significant matters, we are looking at when and with whom we are discussing the matter, and if there are inconsistencies, how they were addressed. That is what we did in the hand action in the class. Simple. That is nothing but your form, content, and extent of audit documentation. Answer number 6 is basically when we see about this audit process performed, audit evidence obtained, significant matters, significant judgment, conclusions reached. When we say significant matters, this third point, significant matters, what does it mean? It means 2 plus 2 plus 2. First is significant risk, significant difficulties, material misstatement, risk of material misstatement, and finally 705 and 706. So these are the matters that will come. This is your question number 6, which is there. Okay. Question number 7, that is circumstances when it is appropriate to document the professional judgment of the auditor. So in this, I had given you a debtor's RDD example in the class, if you remember, and in that we had seen the information and the factors that we are taking into consideration, the reasonableness of our judgment, and finally the authenticity of the documents based on which we are saying that the judgment is proper. That is what the auditor will note in his audit documentation regarding the professional judgment. Simple. That is question number 7 that can come in the examination. Question number 11 I'll complete first, and in these 3 examples you must have written here any 3 examples of audit documentation from our notes. So in the class I told you that from this area you can select any 3 examples you can write in the in that box, and just keep this in mind by chance if it comes in the exam for an example based question. Finally, we have answer number 8, 9, and 10. So if you look at the chart, we have completed 1, we have completed 2, we have completed 3, we have completed 4, 5 is here, 6th is this one, 7th is this one, 8 is 8, 9, 10 we are going to do it, and 11th is this one. So in total 11 answers. Now what is question number 8 here? So 8 you can see here, that is ownership of our documentation. Remember, the ownership of our documentation as per SQC1 is of the auditor only. It is at the auditor's discretion or his choice that the auditor can either disclose his entire documentation or a part of it, or let's say the auditor says that I don't want to disclose my audit documentation at all. Can he decide that? The answer is yes, completely yes. Okay. Remember one nice point, this has come in the exam once. The main auditor does not have the access to the audit documentation of the branch auditor. Just remember that area. Okay. Next is this question number 8. Question number 9 is completion memorandum. In the class I told you it is a summary of audit documentation. If your audit documentation is, let's say, of around 200 pages, and if you compress it and make it 20 pages document, it's called summary. It includes significant matters and how significant matters are addressed, helps in effective and efficient reviews. Okay. What is audit file? Finally, question number 10. Audit file, the auditor has to prepare within 60 days from the date of the auditor's report. It shall be retained for 7 years after the audit file is made. Only the changes which are administrative in nature can be made. In this, some examples are given, very, very important in my opinion. Do it well. Deleting any superseded documents, deleting any kind of superseded documents is covered here. So if your second email is superior to the first one in terms of second email clarifies the things in a better manner, then the print of the first email you need not keep with you in the audit file. Only the print of the second email you will keep, because second email has superseded the first email. Okay. Next is sorting of the files. I told you sorting. You can make compartmentalized audit folder. Next, you have checklist. That is, you can make a list of all the things that you have maintained the audit file regarding. And finally, whatever you have spoken with your engagement team members, if you put it in the written form, even that is part of the audit documentation. So documenting the audit evidence that may have been discussed. That is what is covered here. Okay. Now this completes all 11 answers in relation to your audit documentation. Okay. Very simple chapter, extremely scoring. Because this is now a separate chapter, expect questions from this separately in the examination, and you can easily score good marks. Just 11 areas you have to know, and the marks are in your pocket. You should be thankful to ICI that this chapter they have put it as a separate chapter, creating a very good scoring opportunity for the students. Okay. I wish you all the best. Study well. Take care.